Hello, everyone. I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you about body composition and measurements of progress. I know I get constant questions from current members and just people out in the industry asking me about what percent body fat they need to be. And um, body fat is one of those things that is utilized as a measurement, and we have this concept that to compete in a physique competition, and I hear all the time uh, people saying that their coach told them they need to be 10% body fat, or that in the gyms they're being measured and they have 35% body fat and they need to get their body fat down. Um, One thing about body composition measurements is that they're highly inaccurate. And so when we start to depend upon them, they're worse than the bathroom scale. So it can really mess up a person's mind if they go in one day and they're measured by somebody or some device and they're told a certain percentage body fat, and then they go out and they try to change their activity level or their food intake level or other manipulations to reduce their body fat, and they come back and they're measured again and they get a completely different number. And um, it's one of those things that I find to be really, for the most part, useless. As I said, even more useless than hopping on a scale. What's more helpful actually is two things. One, a visual. And I actually think I'm going to post a visual chart of what typical visuals are for extrapolated body parts and the percentage body fats. And these are good visual guidelines if you were to say, well, I am approximately a certain percentage body fat. If you're competing on stage, you're never going to win or lose a competition based on your percentage body fat. What you will do is get looked at better if your body looks better. I know there are some people that have a body fat that they're told that they are 18% body fat and it just looks lousy. And there are people who are 22% body fat and it looks phenomenal. So I go more by how you look. Now, if you're interested in tracking yourself, a very reliable and very reasonable way to track is circumference measurements of your body. That's a great way to watch for changes. In your PT Advantage personal site, there actually is a place for you to log your body measurements. And all you do is you take a measuring tape and you wrap it around and take a measurement and plug it in. And then a month later, 2 months later, you go back and take the same measurement and see what the changes are. Now, sometimes measurements will go up and sometimes measurements will go down. But if we want to gain some muscle, sometimes the measurements will go up. Um, Particularly things like your biceps. You may want your biceps to get bigger, but you may want your waist to get smaller. So, but it is a good way for you to track and see what kind of changes. And a lot of you will send in pictures of what the jeans were you put on that used to fit you before you started the program, and 6 weeks later, they're big and baggy around the waist. So for me, I look at that as a positive indication that your body composition is changing. So whereas the scale may not change, and then you may go on one of those bioimpedance machines, which you put your feet on or your hands on, or they put little sensors on your skin and hypothetically measure your body fat. But body fat, those measurements measure relative water in your body, if you're a little dehydrated or if your muscles are pumped. I can't tell you how many times they tell me that I'm 23% body fat, but if you look at me, I'm not really sure. So it's one of those things that it's really hard to determine from those indirect measurements of body fat. But again, what's more appropriate is for you to look at changes in your own body and measurements of things like clothes look feeling looser, looking looser, and those circumference measurements. I do look for changes in you in your check-in pictures weekly because I know where the typical body composition changes happen, and um, if you're moving in the progression that we look for, I know the sequence that it typically happens. Some women lose a little bit faster in the upper body and then slower in the lower body. Some women lose it more in the midsection and then lose it in the legs. Everybody's a little different, but I just look for progress and change. So I hope this clarifies a little bit on when somebody says, well, what body fat should I be? I will always give them an answer of it doesn't matter. You need to be healthy. You need to be at a good fitness range, and you'll kind of know when your clothes fit you and you feel comfortable wearing that swimsuit in the summertime.